was like, what?
I kind of cheated. Uh-oh.
No, wait,
You're making him confused now.
It's the other side. It's really weird. You have to go back or go right to get to the thing. Ooh. Hey. Right? It's really confusing.
In autumn.
Okay, so I kind of cheated because I'm not really going to talk for my lightning talk very much. It is Women's History Month, and as you can see from the slide, it's called Programming History Month because programming history is women's history. When programming came on the scene as a thing you could get paid to do, it was women who were doing it. Hardware and electrical engineering was seen as more of a manly pursuit, but programming, that was secretary stuff. So the people who were doing the majority of the programming from about mid-40s to about late 60s, it's majority women. In the 60s, we start seeing men join the profession in droves. In the 70s, men have more of like a 70% majority. Today, we're at about 80% male, 20% female. I'm not going into why those happen, those demographic changes happen, or who these people are in depth, or things we should do now. I just wanted to take a look at our history. So this is just a bunch of pictures of people who were programmers back in the day. That's all it is. It's just because I wanted to look at pictures of people who were programmers back in the day. And then there's a lot of links at the last slide, and I'll send these out. So you can look into these people in depth if you want to. But it's mostly just a lot of people with big hair and really, really big computers. So that is what this is. But I had to start with the A-level list because you have to, because it's required. So it turns out there's a daguerreotype of her, and I didn't know that until I was researching this presentation. So we actually have a photograph, but she's like super old though. Anyways, these are some women programming the ENIAC. There are 6 main people who were programming the ENIAC, and they were all women.
What are they holding over there? Keyboards?
Yeah, you can see they're holding, well, no, those aren't keyboards.
Circuit?
Yeah.
Circuit board, I see.
Yeah.
Circuit board.
Yeah, they're showing you all the different boards they were using.
You might be able to use arrows.
Even keyboards
Use
were
their-
big
I
back
think
then.
so.
You ever programmed data or anything wherever it is? You? Dana? No.
There we go.
Use the arrow keys.
I tried that and it did not.
Oh.
Oh, wait, there it is.
Hey!
Hey-o!
Yeah.
Woo!
Okay. That's Teddy.
I got dizzy for a
Betty
second.
Holberton is over there. You can't necessarily read this in this coloring. It's easier to read on my computer. But it said, Gene Bartik, the one on the left, is quoted as saying, "The ENIAC was a son of a bitch to program." And I thought that was really
I love profanity. Something like that.
I tried to get some from other places in the world as well. So this is Canada's first computer scientist. Kathleen Booth over here. She's who we have to thank. One of the people we have to thank for assembly language. And then that's Melba Mountain, who worked at NASA. These are some programmers in Amsterdam working actually on one of the earliest sound mixing machines. Well, that's cool. Grace Hopper, because you always need some Grace Hopper in your life. Some people working in Israel, it's the first supercomputer. So, Katerina, who's third from the left over there? Yeah, third from the left, apparently invented pointers about 8 years before the guy who's credited with inventing pointers, but it was only published in Russian during the Cold War, so we didn't know that for a very long time. But that is the computer she worked on, that whole thing up there. IBM flowcharts.
Unnamed.
I know. IBM had a whole bunch of pictures of just people working in their offices for publicity, but they didn't like say who they were. They're like, these are our programmers. These are our programmers getting coffee. These are our programmers writing flowcharts. So that's all we really have to go off of. So thanks, IBM. Sister Mary Kenneth Keller, first woman to get a PhD in computer science, was a nun. Go figure. 1967 issue of Cosmo. This subheadline says, a trainee gets $8,000 a year. A girl senior systems analyst gets $20,000 and up. Maybe it's time you investigate. And there's this whole article about how you could be a systems analyst in the big city and wear lots of cool clothes in Cosmo. So
I feel like Cosmos changed.
You know, you never know.
Some people do read it for us.
Another unnamed IBM person. So,
Little old ladies.
yeah, no, this is called LOL memory. If you've ever heard of LOL memory, it stands for Little Old Ladies Memory. These women were literally threading copper wire through magnetic rings through meant a 1 and around meant a 0. They're hardwiring the memory of the Apollo 11 shuttle.
Wow.
They literally used to weave memory. And you can do that, technically, if you wanted to. So if you're into maker stuff,
That's
you
where
can
this
make
song
yourself some
Dreamweaver
memory.
came from.
It's
Jeez.
memory.
Yeah. These are, if you saw Hidden Figures, Dorothy Vaughan is the one that was the programmer, and this is Dorothy Vaughan and some of her team at NASA. Margaret Hamilton, that is some more Apollo code. That's for the guidance system. There is a guy who worked at Bell Labs in the 60s who brought his camera to work for a day, and he posted all of the pictures online, and so these are just some of the ones. You can see this lady with the tapes on the mainframe, so that was fun. Jake Feinler worked on ARPANET. Some more Ray Perlman. Gene Samnett. Game developer. More NASA. Went the wrong way. This was the March '83 issue of Video Games Magazine, highlighting women game developers at the time. There are more in here. These are the ones that I got pictures of, though. And this is my last one. This is Susan Kerr, just because I love this picture. She looks so happy. So, and these are the sources, and I will send this out, including that entire '83 issue of Video Games Magazine, so y'all can read that to your heart's content. So that was all I had. Any questions? All right, have fun reading Video Games Magazine from March 1983.
Roberta Williams.
I think that one's been cut
You
right
want to go next?
Yeah, I might as well. If
I'll pull up.
now.
Thank you. Ready? All right. Quick show of hands. How many folks here work with TypeScript at all? Okay, so yeah, pretty good showing. JavaScript, occasionally. Okay. So hopefully this will be useful. Let's imagine a simple client-server setup, and on the server you have one endpoint, and you want to make an app that like displays information about events. So you have this event/ID route, and all it's going to do is return a JSON object that's got an event ID, and then a type that you're just using an integer of some form, and the name of the event or something. Doesn't matter. And then on the front end, you want to grab all that data after a couple queries, and you want to like group them all together by event type, and you probably want to show a picture or whatever. It doesn't totally matter for these purposes. And you need those things to communicate, obviously, back and forth. So, being an enterprising individual, you decide, hey, I'm going to use TypeScript to make sure that I don't have easy to find bugs in my front end, and you set up this interface, and you're going to call it event. And you type it exactly the same as what you've done on the back end, right? So you've got a back end object that you're passing through an API, and then you're grabbing it on the front end, and you're assuming via TypeScript that what you get from that API is going to match the signature, because that handoff between the API and the front end code is kind of a leap of faith. Like you almost have to just tell the front end, hey, this is the type of thing that you're going to get, and then the front end has to believe you. Like there's no trivial way to force that communication to occur, right? So that's good. And let's say that you're moving forward in time and you say, I want to change from using integers to capture event types, and I'm going to use a string now. Just make some small tweak to the schema that you've established. And so you go to the back end and you update your unit tests and all of your back end code. You change your interface here to say my event type is now going to be a string, and it's going to say concert or I don't know, wedding or whatever the type of the event is instead of 0, 1, 2, etc. So you just set up a different type of email. And you, being a normal human being, forget to make that corresponding change in the front end, right? And so you don't catch that necessarily at compile time. You probably catch it pretty quickly after you post to the live server, but it's a pain in the butt because you've essentially got two versions of truth sitting out here. You've got a TypeScript interface on the front end, and then you've got the object that you've created on the back end, and they kind of don't communicate together very well. So one way you can get around that is by eliminating one of those sources, obviously. And one way to do that we've found useful, that it facilitates communicating across a pretty wide variety of languages or frameworks or whatever you need, is to use a JSON schema. And all it is like a JSON object saved in a JSON file that corresponds to a specific format that looks just like a JavaScript object would. And instead of putting it in the front end in TypeScript and putting it in the back end in Python or Ruby or whatever you're using, you just put that type in a JSON file, and you point the back end and the front end to that commonality, right? You point it to the schema file, which is substantially easier. And that is tricky.
Yeah, working backwards is weird.
Okay, you're going to trust me that it's a JSON file. But all you have to do if you're using TypeScript is you load in this package via npm, and you basically point it to the file location and say, hey, load these in as TypeScript declaration files, and it more or less kind of handles everything for you there. There are corresponding packages for a bunch of different backend languages, so like this one is, this is a Ruby one. I've used the Python one, like I'm sure there are 1,000 versions of these, but basically they just grab something from a JSON file and then interpret it within this schema, the set structure, and make sure that some object you pass into the function validates with whatever that JSON structure is that you've set up. And so it's pretty cool because you can set up like a simple on-change event, so if you change this file, you can set it to just propagate out and automatically like create a TypeScript equivalent file, and if you need something on the back end, you can just set up a little on-change event to do that too. So it's not a huge win. Like you can get around this problem in a lot of different ways. You just have more robust unit tests and things, and particularly embedded tests should probably pick up most of this, but it's cool because it's at compile time instead of runtime. So it's been a nice little process for us. That's about all there is to it. It's super simple to implement, which is also a nice perk. So that's it. If anyone has any questions or anything, it's been fun to play with.
Each type is DS and Swagger, like you document your API with a spec.
If it was a public-facing API, we probably would. This is for like stuff that only we were going to touch. So like, that would be probably the right way to do it. This is like a weird ground in between nothing and having a formally documented API.
The tools, like Swagger, for instance, the tools are pretty awful. I would be very curious what the tools are like for JSON. Like it's much simpler.
Yeah.
I imagine the tools are way simpler, therefore a lot easier to implement. So.
Yeah, and it's very easy to customize as you might, because it's a JSON file, right? Like you can literally go in and just alter something if you need to. And I've been pretty impressed with the robustness of like the field types and just kind of the basic blocking and tagging. In a lot of ways, it actually covers more cases than TypeScript definitions do. So that's kind of nice. It's like it's the superset. I'm just playing within the subset anyways. So if it's missing something, I haven't noticed.
You kind of saying like the front end, you have to accept on faith that you're getting the right shape of the object. But the front end, surely it's a runtime error, right? If it's the wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying it's not the compile time.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. So like if you spin it up into production and you make the get query or whatever, like if the object isn't what you expected, you'll generate an error at some point. So it's just a nice way to catch those before you go live on that.
Can you use JSON with comments, or is that just restricted to JSON?
With comments,
Yeah.
I don't know how to parse those. I'm sure you could rig something up.
I guess that'd be nice. Unless someone else needs that computer.
Only me, but I can go last. Except, I guess we should have introduced ourselves.
Oh, I'm Julia Weingart. I am a systems analyst or a developer analyst at Advantage.
Casey Wolfel, a software developer, I think that's my title.
Yeah, that's what I
It's analytics, it's a remote company.
How did you find that company? You have been working for them for a few months.
We work remotely.com.
Yeah. You're a success story.
I found mine through Texas.
Oh, do we have a VGA adapter?
I don't know. Hey, Tanya, do we have a VGA adapter?
Oh, yes, we do.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I'm not.
Is there an adapter in there? or is it
I've only
cable?
played with TypeScript a little. I quite enjoy it, especially because I'm coming from a
Yep.
and so I'm expecting the compiler to catch a lot of things.
Yeah.
Reach.
It's, in my experience, like, it's okay, it's not great if you're just like.
Well, I was gonna say, I have it on
Once
USB.
you start working on a project,
We have to go and
refactor.
I don't know why we have like a 20-foot. other cable, or you can
Oh,
figure
there's
out
not
that
here,
part.
it's going to cause a problem, and then it just
that
gets
kind
it,
of way.
that's good.
None of this has
I
to
want to
say.
does that
That's-
protect us when
That's the great thing.
to talk about TypeScript. It's like, hey, are you a C# developer who's like tried JavaScript and then you hated it? Guess what? TypeScript's a thing.
It's
And I was
kind of
like, oh, okay, I see.
I never totally understood the argument. Then strongly documented. I get that it's easier to literally get something on the screen, but like it's kind of harder to figure out what's going on
Yeah.
when you don't know, like, okay, this function is literally taking this kind of object and it's returning it. Like that's it's very transparent.
Mhm.
So it's been fun. to,
Do you have a-
edge closer to
Oh.
and still be
Is
able
it doing?
Yeah, it's probably the lock screen.
Honestly, the longer I'm on the license, the less I have opinions on what is easiest to
There.
start with.
Yeah.
Or what is easiest to learn. It just kind of seems like you start where you are and you find your way.
It's just, it's funny. That's like literally all it is. But not maybe it didn't have CTU on.
Hey, Casey.
Very definite.
To answer your question, the general practice is that you don't put comments in a JSON file, but if you have to, you have to put in a data element called comment.
Oh.
That makes sense.
That is what it is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus all the cool marks.
This is weird. Okay.
I think there is a JSON spec where you can add comments, like.
I didn't dig that deep, I just,
Oh.
I dug for the general answer.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I never. My computer is archaic. There we go. Sorry, I haven't talked in like 11 years in front of people. My name's Nathaniel Townsend. I am a software architect in training for Wolters Kluwer. A year ago, I was just a UI QA person checking off boxes. And this is how a Y2K bug changed my life. Some setup to this. I was just working one day and I get a call that I need to come to a room. And there's 4 people there, an accountant, an engineer, and the lead engineer for the whole company and my supervisor. And they hand me this formula. And for some reason, they tell me to make it into code. I've never written code before. So one of the engineers just written a blank function and he's like, have a go. this became my hello world. It was pretty rough. I was 4 hours in that room, going back and forth between MSDN and wondering what the hell I'm doing here. This turned out to be an interview for a job I didn't know I was applying for. But at the end of this, there was one issue with that code. The engineers looked it over, there was nothing wrong with the syntax. The accountant looked it over, everything was right when he worked it out in pencil. But when we ran unit tests against it, every result was 1 day off. This led everyone in the room to ask this question. And so my next job for the next 4 hours, finishing my 8-hour day, was to figure out why. And it's because of this data type right here, date time. And a thing that operating systems have called origin dates. IBM has an origin date of 1900 with 366 days, which is false. 1900 is not a leap year. Microsoft had it right in Windows 3.1, but they wanted to be best friends. So software-wise, they decided leap year existed that year too. Apple made, just for the sake of being different, made it 1904, which is a leap year, so they're right in the first place. They don't have to worry about 1900. Which also made some porting issues weird, from what I learned. So, this led to a leap year bug that is native in the code for a lot of software. And Excel is the most famous one that has this issue. And this is accounting software, and that formula is used for mortgage rates and all that stuff, and it's pretty serious business. David A. Wheeler is he's everything. Right now he works as a professor, but at the time he made this quote, he was one of the lead people for the Open Office XML spec, and he was not very happy with Microsoft. So as I compiled this research and presented it, these are links that also were part of my research, and I presented it to them. Everyone in the room was happy, and so they went off to their higher-ups to basically be like, hey, look what we found. And then they came back with sad faces, giving me a sad face, saying that I still had to go back and fix it, and I had no clue how. It was actually pretty simple, just -1 from start date. That's it. But because I bothered to do the research and I was right and found everything, instead of them turning me away, they decided to give me the position. And that is how I began my journey as a developer, when before I was just a shoveler for a mine up in Marquette. So that is my presentation.
That's awesome.
Our software, our back-end origin date is 1870 something. 12/31/1870 something.
Yeah.
Because that was like the 1870, whatever the next year was the date of birth of the oldest person alive, and the person who wrote the thing. It's real weird. But the point is, the front end's origin date is in 1900, so that causes problems.
Well, an interesting thing I found is after C#6, they changed the origin date to 12/30/1899.
Mm-hmm.
But but when you do a 2OA date, it'll use 1900.
Really?
Dates are hard.
So
Dates are so hard.
that's my life.
What even is that?
Century.
My whole job is time and
unless they're
money.
divisible by
That's it.
400.
Yeah.
It's a good field to do.
Well, we make tax software and health software,
Mhm.
and we used to do banking, but I never really heard much from that one. Someone in Slack used to use one of our products called Compliance Hub.
Mhm.
But I know we don't. That's been sunset for years now. But yeah, that's how I became a developer.
Awesome. I'm really surprised that you had a surprise 8-hour interview. That sucks, but I mean, I'm glad it worked out. Man.
Well, like even the choosing process surprised me because they're like, oh, you're the QA with the highest production value, so you probably know more than you're letting on. No, I just know how to do repetitive tasks very well.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. That's awesome.
And then secretly use Word's record feature to make macros, so that it's like, okay, I know I always do this. If it fails, it'll give me an error.
Awesome.
Say, what a journal?
Do you speak the German?
One year.
One here.
Yeah, one year.
Back here, forward.
That is a much better name.
There we go. Cool. So mine's DevOps, but it's mostly just ops. I'm not going to do much dev. I think dev is pretty well covered in this part. I'm Kevin, and it's going to be all over the place. I mean, this is about 30 minutes, and it's just kind of a random spattering of ops tricks I think we do good and have been making better over like 5-ish years. So to kick this off, you know, how many people will have like Bitbucket accounts or Slack accounts, and the root owner of that account, like, is that you?
Yes.
Or is that somebody of your organization? Yeah, so that's always really bad, because then that person leaves or something happens, or they're on vacation and you get a reset code and you're like, shit. And so you have to go call them down, track them down, which is exactly why you want to set up a role. So easiest way to set it up is just get a distribution list. Call it infrastructure@myorg.com or whatever it is, billing at myorg, whatever it is. And start getting people on that and start creating your services against that. And tie whoever's supposed to actually be responsible for that account should be a member of that distribution list. And it works out great. They get all the reset passwords, all that stuff. Yeah, so good example, infrastructure. You know, this is me logging into a root account at AWS. You know, bad example, me with my actual username. Let's see. So it's pretty easy.
Just forwards to everybody who should
Yeah.
get it. Okay.
Exactly. So a distribution list, here's your account, and then it's the account started by a password. Actually, let's start over here. This is backwards. I made this in 15 minutes. So we're gonna go right from left on this time. You start out with 2 people on that account, and you decide you need to add Eve to be responsible for this. Just add them to the distribution list, and they will start receiving email for that. And then you need to get Bob off of that because Bob quit or otherwise, and you just need to get them off their distribution list and then repeat the password. And then you bonus points if you're using a LastPass to share that password to all the people on the list. Downsides of this would be you generally can't send mail with the distribution list. That's never once ever been a problem for us. You're generally just receiving like account confirmation numbers and stuff like that. Even whenever you're working with people on like your account service, you call them up, like, what's your email address? You just give them the email address. They're not going to try to have you send something to them. The other downside is a lot of accounts, take for instance, Bitbucket. That account is going to count towards your seats. So like you're going to pay an extra $5 per month for that seat. It's always worth it. It's always worth it. I've never seen it not worth it. So that's in my opinion, the current best way to take care of your third-party accounts is use some roles. Next up on the spattering of things is events. So, you've got a bunch of infrastructure running services. Services have events, things go up, things go down. People cause 500s on your servers, logs somehow screw up. These things happen, make sure you know about them and get them filtered prioritized. There's also a really great article from a Google SRE, site reliability engineer. It's called symptom-based monitoring. And that's a great article to read about how to actually set up your filters. Here is another whiteboard. Basically, the general way you want to set this up is you've got your event sources, you've got some topics, and you've got some subscribers. And I'm going to present a bunch of opinions if they're facts. You want to have 3 topics. You want to have an info, a warn, and a critical. And you want to have your chat or whatever hooked up to all of them. So chat's on all 3 of these events. And so whenever there's an info event happens, maybe a server had a 500 error. And so that's going to pop up in your info, and chat will see it. Somebody will see our ops channel pop and say, oh, there's 500. That person will go download the logs, see if there's anything crazy going on. Usually 9 times out of 10, it's not a big deal. Maybe you adjust your filters to require more 500s before it chirps at you again. Warning is, you should reserve that for stuff that's like, it's not imminent, but if you leave it unchecked, it is going to become a bad problem. Like disk space, 90%, connection count, 90% of capacity. Things that need to be taken care of timely, but not like literally this instant. The critical is you're down. Your database isn't connecting, website isn't hosting pages. Generally, the way we handle this is info goes to chat, warn goes to email and chat. So email kind of acts as a record, and critical goes to our on-call services, our email, and our chat. And then over on the event sources, generally speaking, your infrastructure you're running on, AWS, DigitalOcean, Azure, all those, they have events. In AWS, this is called CloudWatch. Configure it to your heart's content and send it wherever you want to do. For your own services, use some metric library and instrument your stuff. Failed logins, time, slow queries, stuff like that. You can get those all going to these events. Our particular case, we run everything in AWS. You can do this topic fabric can be done wherever you want, but in our case, we just use SNS, which is Amazon's topic stuff. MQTT, Kafka, there's tons of open source stuff out there. And then on the subscription side of things, Slack, our distribution list, we have, again, infrastructure at whatever. And on-call, we use VictorOps because it's cheaper than pay-per-view. That's kind of what it looks like. People get paged. We have some events in our channel, like this particular one is our live APIs at a 500 count. And over on the right is kind of, on top of these guys, you can also hook up like Bitbucket events. There's more events than just this that are like interesting to your company or interesting to your organization, your team, like Jira events, Bitbucket events, all sorts of stuff. GitHub went down. You probably want to know about that. And so that'll you can configure that to pop up in Slack and let everyone know, like this person has commented on this ticket, this person just committed this code, which is, by the way, a really great way to get people to write good commit messages because everyone's going to see them. So that's kind of your event management architecture. And then finally, you got secret management. And I think the best way to break this down is you've got a repo, literally a Git repo. Keep your documents in there and secure them with some key, some separate key. This is a key that a couple of users have access to, and they can use that to encrypt those documents inside the repository. At deployment time, you're going to deploy that to a key value store. So like Vault is an open source one, but also AWS has SSM, security service managers, and like that. Basically, they're key value stores, and you can say like these keys can only be accessible by these people, and it's great. And so you want to take, so they're encrypted with this key over here, you deploy them, and they get re-encrypted with keys that only specific services have access to. So this service A, can only decrypt these documents from the store. Service B can only decrypt those documents from that store. And you scaled it out to however many environments you have. And I think that's all. Perfect. Any questions?
Not all.
Just the vomit, basically.
I wanted him to give a longer talk, but he signed up for this. I might convince him to do a longer talk later.
Do you mentioned a lot of third-party things that are available. Do you have favorites?
So on the third party side, like in terms of which particular aspect?
I don't know, any.
On the secret side, the secret management side, the one that I left out is use some cloud, like use some HMS, like some hardware managed key service. It's called KMS and AWS. I'm sure Azure and all those other have other things. Basically, the way those work is the key material, like the actual real secret thing, always lives on their servers. It's their responsibility to keep it secret. And you use IAM, their permission model, to say this person is allowed to encrypt stuff with that key. I can never get that key, but I can encrypt and decrypt stuff with it because my IAM user is allowed to do that. Similarly with these other ones, so basically in this case, there's three KMS keys. These guys are encrypted with the key. I call it the org key, like the admin key, and we have service keys for each environment, and that's how we sort it out. So whenever service A starts up, it goes and says, I am this IAM role, and that IAM role is allowed to use that particular key, and it can decrypt that document, and everybody's happy. Yeah.
Doing this backwards is good. Oh. I'm Tanya, you don't know, and my talk today is everything wrong with developers, aka stop that. It's a very lighthearted approach to some really bad habits that a lot of people have, but it is very apparent when you work with software developers because you'll see when we get to the topic. It's very lighthearted, it's very tongue-in-cheek. I think a lot of people do these things and they have no clue they do them, so I'm really hoping that people leave tonight with an awareness they never had before. The computer screen. You're a very helpful person, and let's say that one of your coworkers has asked for help on their computer. They can't figure out why the bug just is happening. They can't see it. You go up and you see, oh, they're missing a semicolon. Hey, buddy, you're missing a semicolon right there on their computer screen.
Is that Kurt or Scripps? No.
Don't touch other people's computer screens. It is gross, for one. I don't know where your hands have been. It leaves fingerprints all over my screen. If I did have a touch screen, you've now messed up my screen. And it's not your computer. Don't touch it. Quit touching other people's screens. And you could, don't touch the screens. You can point in the general directions. You see, I can point. You can tell where I'm pointing without touching. No touchy. No touchy. Okay, next. So, someone asked for help. Yes?
You know what's funny is I'm like, there's no way I do this. But Solomon has a touch screen. I know I've accidentally clicked on stuff, so I must be touching this screen.
It's happened a lot.
Whoops.
Okay, so you now know not to touch the screen, but the person's still asking for help. The keyboard and mouse. You're watching this person, they can't figure it out, and you know just what needs to happen. What you don't do is, I'll just do that for you, and you just take their mouse and keyboard from them and start typing, because I'm serious, this is what their face is going to be. They'd be like, fine, I guess you're doing my job today. I didn't want to do this or learn this or anything like that. Taking the keyboard and mouse away from the person, even if they're struggling, even if you are just dying, takes away their ability to learn because they need to type it. Unless they specifically go, can you do this for me? And pushes it in your direction. Don't take their keyboard
I say no
and
every
mouse.
time they do that.
I use Colmex, so I can't type my keyboard like go nuts. You can't.
So,
Wireless dongle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's cruel, don't do that. Okay, so now you know, I can't touch the screen. I'm not gonna touch the keyboard and mouse. So, I'm just gonna watch. I'm just gonna watch and do it. I'm not gonna touch anything. They start typing. Oh, you mistyped that. Oh, that's not how you do that. Oh, have you ever tried typing when someone's watching you? How well does that go? It's so hard. Now imagine if you're someone who's asking for help. You have probably either a senior dev or they might not be your boss, but they are a bit higher level, correcting every single keystroke that you make as you're making it. How do you think that person who has now asked for help feels? They don't feel too great about themselves. They actually probably regret asking for help at this point, and they just want to crawl into a corner and cry a bit. They may do things a little bit different. Let them finish typing. In fact, even if they write the function completely wrong, let them run it. And then when it fails, see if they can figure it out. You correcting every single keystroke the programmer makes does not let them learn anything. It just makes them not want to ask for help anymore.
And that's why I liked help desk so much. Just convince them not to call. Not kidding.
Okay, so now you know you're not going to like hound them or anything. But what happens if they ask for advice? Hey, I am really stuck on this thing, and I don't know how to fix it. And I really don't think any of you are guilty, but for those who may watch this later. The wrong responses are, oh, you're working in that code base? Oh, that's disgusting. Or, why are you using that framework? You could be totally using this framework. That's an old version of that language. You should totally be using the updated version. None of that matters. You don't know why they're asking the question. You don't know what their restrictions are. They have asked you questions because obviously they value your advice. Either help them or not, but don't degrade what they're using. Period. It doesn't matter if you think that their boss has made the wrong, it doesn't matter. They have asked for help. Just answer the question.
You would not like Stack Overflow.
Oh, I know, that's why I don't
very
post. I post on Slack for a reason.
Yeah,
It's brutal.
Code review. You've done coding, you've given it off to someone else to do a code review, and they come up to you and they go, that's wrong code. How do you respond? Are you sure? Are you sure? Listen, I am sure whoever's doing your code review, whoever has the responsibility to look over your stuff has been doing it for a little bit. And even if you think they are wrong, even if you think your code was inspired by whatever, and it's perfect, are you sure is not the correct response. Oh, I really looked over that carefully. Can you show me where? Like any other response than, are you sure, is what you say to someone who comes up to you. Testing. Your Q&A testers, you know, they work hard. Unless they write a script that takes care of everything for them. But they do. And yes, you sometimes run into Q&A testers, and we all know if there's a cast or something going on and it's not clear, it can cause an issue. So if your Q&A tester comes up and goes, hey, I'm testing that new feature and it's not quite working, not my problem. That's not my problem. It's working for me. I don't know what your issue is.
Worked on mine.
Exactly. Those responses
turn it
when
off.
your tester comes up to you is not the, it works on my local, I don't know what the issue is. Not the response. Oh, that was working for me. Can you show me what you're seeing? Like, there are so many better ways to approach this than it was working in my local, or I don't know what to tell you, I can't recreate it.
That was 6 hours of my day.
How many times did a developer go, well, it's working in my local?
Oh my, every time you open your mouth?
Yeah, and how did you're like, I realize that it probably works in your local, but I also have a job I'm doing. Could we please communicate? So.
I just go and market X anyway and then their boss.
There you go. And then my very last piece, users. We all know how we feel about users. We can't deny it, we can't fight it. We make fun of them because, well, they're users. But here's the thing, guys. Guess what we're paid for? We're paid to help the users. And if you accidentally sliced your arm open and you had to go to the emergency room for stitches, you're gonna really hope the ER doctor doesn't laugh at you for not knowing how to use a needle and thread. You're paying them money for a service because you don't know how to do it. It is the same thing in our cases, and it is easy to joke, we all do it. But at the same time, when you get customer complaints or they're calling you, this attitude towards our users does not go over well. And that's why so many developers have a bad rep, because we're stuck up, we're computer snobs, all of the above. Again, that whole thing of, I can't recreate that. Could you maybe send me screenshots? Could we do a screen share? Just a little bit of humility and empathy goes a long ways when we're developers, so people quit thinking that we are stuck up in our own world. Because we're not. I love all of you guys so much. This is what I do, is devICT. So, in conclusion, because I'm at my 7 minutes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because we are all caring and empathetic people. I know that. And because of that, we can be all one big happy family, and we can all get along. Just don't touch my computer screen. That's it.
Probably is awkward.
I almost used that. Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, that was it. Anyone else want to talk, or we just want to hang out?
You can spontaneously give a lightning talk even if you didn't sign up.
Yep, it
I'm
was.
just saying.
Robin, go! Yo.
Shortest talk of the evening.